And I changed a line of dialogue one day, and he called me in and he fired me. And the studio took it from him and they changed the ending. And the ending is kind of a horror film. It's terrible. It doesn't even go with the rest of the movie. But that's what the studio wanted for a shock value, I guess. I had neurological damage. I hit the left side of my head so hard that the right side of my body got a beat behind the left side. Like she told me once, she had a 9-month affair with Marlon Brando. He had a very small penis, but he worked very hard. I'm like, wow, too much information, but wow.
Well, Eric Roberts, it is great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I just had a quick look on IMDb, keeps tabs on everything you've ever done. It has pegged 865 projects so far, but that includes ones that are on the drawing board yet to be made. How in the heck do you keep up?
I just have a great life. Let me explain to you how it happened. When we had film, like all movie actors, I did 1 to 3 movies every year, and then came digital. So everybody who had a camera became a studio, and they started calling me direct. And about 1997, 8, 9, I don't know, in there somewhere, my wife comes to me one day in the hallway right here. She says to me, "Honey, I got to talk to you." I said, "What's up?" She goes, "I've been on the computer, and every day you're offered 30 to 50 offers from all over the world. This has gone insane. Do you want to go chase this?" I said, "Sure, let's go have fun." I thought it'd last a couple of years. And that was 30 years ago. And what's happened is they call me direct. I have these readers who read scripts. I read the synopsis. If I like the synopsis, I read the script. If I like the script, I tell my wife to make the deal. And it's like a little factory at our house. It's a dream come true for an actor, because all we want in life as an actor is to work and to be like a 9 to 5 job. It's 6 days a week on a movie set is heaven, and I get to do it.
I mean, for instance, Eric, 2024, so that's last year, you've made or have ready to screen something like 43 movies. I mean, that is more than some of the great stars make in their entire career. So you're right, it is a factory. And I know when last we chatted, you told me of occasions where you've had umpteen movies on the hop at the one time. So literally you race from one set to another, one location to the other. I mean, that must really test your mind.
I'm not carrying these films. I'm not the character of these movies. I'm just in them. I have little parts here and there. That's why there are so many. Now I star in probably 1 out of 10 or 12 now, and the other 10 or 11 are little cameos. So that's how I can do so many.
If needs be, and not all the time, but if needs be, you've got a guy that kind of figures your cue cards. You just have a quick scan of that, and away you go.
Yeah, I use UQ cards when I'm in a project, and then that project ends and I have one night in between the next project. So I had this guy who does great cue cards for me. I can see him across the street. In fact, I put cue cards so far away that nobody even knows I have cue cards. It's great.
Oh, well, that's right. I mean, I know some actors use earphones, but I've never got my head around that because you're trying to deliver a line as you're hearing a line. I know you've been offered Johnny Depp's earwig, haven't you, on occasions, but you've turned all that down.
Johnny Depp's always using Earwig, and he's obviously very good at it. I can't do it because as it's talking, I'm talking, and I get totally confused, and I don't know what's going on, and I fall out of character. So I can't use an Earwig. I like big old cue cards that are way across the street in the next building through a window. I glance over there, I see what it is, I say my line, and nobody knows the difference.
Not
And
a clue in the world. You think about your life, Eric, and both your mum and your dad were involved in showbiz, right?
right, yeah, they ran a young people's actors and writers school called the Actors and the Writers Workshop from about 1961 to 1971. And that was those my growing up years, from 5 to 16. Yeah.
I read that as a kid, you had a stutter. And the way to overcome that was kind of reciting something, learning lines, and that kind of sets you on the path to becoming the actor you are today.
Well, that's actually when I decided at 7 years old I was going to be an actor for life, because the uh, the joy and the real freedom of being able to speak was such a gift and was such magic for me. And if I memorized stuff, I could say it with no stutter. So it was my world.
1977, and you get a break on one of the great daytime drama series, Another World. And you were there for about 6 months and then unceremoniously dumped. You said, in hindsight, years down the track, you were probably not that flash hot as a daytime soap opera actor at that point in time.
It was the hardest job I ever had
Mhm.
because because of the amount of dialogue you have to maintain and every day. And that was very hard. And I was not very good yet as far as working the camera, working the marks, finding where I stand, what I say. I was a rookie and I looked like a rookie. And I also was 19, so I had it in my brain that I was as gifted as my writers, and I would change my dialogue. And the producer called me into the office one day after about 3 or 4 months, and he says, "Mr. Roberts, have a seat. Are you a writer?" I said, "No, sir." "Then why are you rewriting your dialogue?" I said, "I don't rewrite anybody's cues." I was thinking that was okay. Anyway, he explained to me that I was not a writer. I was not to ever write again. I was to only act. I said, okay. He said, and if you fall out of that, I will fire you. I said, okay, thanks, buddy, for the warning. Anyway, about 2 more months, went by, and I changed a line of dialogue one day, and he called me in and he fired me. As simple as that. But it was good because I was out of the contract and I was free, and within a month I had my first film.
And what an absolute beauty this was. King of the Gypsies. And you think of that cast, Shelley Winters, the great Sterling Hayden. What was Shelley like to work with?
She was very good to me. In fact, Shelley Winters would take me aside and have these talks with me out of nowhere. Like, and these even like personal fun stuff. Like, she told me once she had a 9 month affair with Marlon Brando. He had a very small penis, but he worked very hard. I'm like, wow, too much information, but wow. And that's what she was like. And she was just a great lady, and she told me I would be a big star and to always say as kind as I was. And she was just lovely and funny, fat. She weighed close to 300 pounds. She was a great big girl, and I was crazy for her. She was just wonderful.
But then you got to also on that same movie work with somebody who was one of Hollywood's greats, Sterling Hayden, who I know kind of mentored you, but at the same time almost smoked you out like an old kipper in his trailer, didn't he? Because he was very fond of the wacky tobacco.
He liked pot. He liked hash, and he was a THC addict, and he invited me into his trailer the first night we worked together, and I knocked on the door. Come in. I open the door. Hashish smoke hits me in the face. I'm like, wow. He's smoking a pipe. He says, "Have a seat, young man. Do you get high?" First thing he asked me, "Do you get high?" I said, "Well, I've been known to you." "Well, let's get high." "No, I can't get high and work because I can't talk when I'm stoned." He goes, "Okay, well, I can. So anyway, what scene are we shooting?" Scene 87. "I know the number. What the fuck happens?" And he was that kind of guy. And then at the end of the talk, when I tell him about the scene, he says to me, "Are you good at improvisation, young man?" I said, "Yes, sir." "Good, because that's what we're doing." And so we shot all night. A wonderful scene in the movie. Yeah.
Did he regale you whilst you're in his trailer with wonderful stories of working, for instance, with the likes of Marilyn Monroe on the Asphalt Jungle or maybe Joan Crawford in Johnny Guitar? Was he full of those wonderful stories the way that Shelley was?
No, he was full of wonderful stories about his children and his ships.
Right.
Uh, and he told me the story how he and his wife were not getting along. She was not going to share, visitation with the children, and he got pissed off. And he said, "Well, can I take them for one last year cruise out to Catalina?" And she said, "Sure." And he puts them all in a boat and he goes to Paris. And he brings them all back 10 years later. I mean, that was Sterling Hayden. He was eccentric, smart, and definite. I really loved the guy.
You followed up with an equally wonderful movie, Raggedy Man, with Sissy Spacek. What was she like to work with?
Sissy might be the sweetest person. She is what she looks like. She's this
Mhm.
little angelic, lovely, kind, patient, smart, talented little woman. She's just cool. And her husband, Jack Fisk,
Mm.
is an unheralded miracle. He's intelligent, he's smart, he's funny, he's a great director. He directed a great film, Raggedy Man, and it's all the same film that he directed up until my exit. And the studio took it from him and they changed the ending. And the ending is kind of a horror film. It's terrible. It doesn't even go with the rest of the movie. But that's what the studio wanted for a shock value, I guess. But the film that he made that I saw was one of the best love stories I have ever seen in my life. But
Yes.
this studio didn't leave him with it. They took it from him and they changed it. But I love Jack Fisk with all my heart and all my respect.
Yes, I asked about Sissy because she really doesn't do interviews and fans don't really know an awful lot about her, except she is an absolute powerhouse, deserved Oscar winner and so forth. Likewise, Geraldine Page, I know she really didn't have an awful lot, but such an impact on screen with you and Mickey Rourke in The Pope of Greenwich Village.
Well, I knew Geraldine because Geraldine was a very close friend of my then girlfriend's. So that's how. So I knew Geraldine in 2 years before we worked together, and Geraldine and I got along so great. And she introduced me to Rip, and then Rip and I became friends. And Rip and I were both marijuana smokers, and he was growing it on his roof, and I grew up there with him. I mean, he owned this wonderful um, brownstone in the West 40s, and he was just a great cat, and he was a stoner. He was a great actor. He loved to read screenplays out loud, and he was just fun to know. And those are where the stories were because all the Lee Strasberg days, all the temperaments, all the fame, all the fortune, all the loss, and he was right in the middle of all that. He and Geraldine both, and two remarkable, very opposite people, but very, very gifted. Oh my God.
In the 80s, you came to Australia and made a funny movie that is loved all over the world called The Coca Cola Kid. What do you remember about that trip to Australia?
What stands out the most in my memory of that time is your country. Not really the film, but your country. And uh, Greta Sachi was maybe the most beautiful woman on the planet at the time. And there I was in Australia doing this really sweet little movie with
Yeah.
this great crew, great locations, and in a place I would never go to otherwise. So I had so much fun. And yeah, uh, Australians remind me of what Americans must have been like before World War II, and that they were just confident, happy, and comfortable. And that's what you guys act like. You guys are so lovable and so at home with yourselves.
It's interesting, coming to Australia as you did, lucky to have been here or really anywhere because it was 1981, so only a few years earlier. You're involved in that near fatal car crash in Connecticut. You were living with the great Sandy Dennis at the time, and it somehow involved her dog and a Jeep. What happened, as you recall it?
No, Sandy and I never lived together because she had too many cats,
Oh,
and
right.
I just couldn't do it. But I was I was madly in love with her, and we had a great 5-year run together. And but I left her house one night in the middle of the night because I had to leave town the next day for a movie. So uh, sometime between like 2 and 4 in the morning, I go get my Jeep. I have off the doors.
Mhm.
Her dog, also named Sandy, who was a blonde German Shepherd, gets in the dog with me. I was always taking the dog back and forth, so it didn't matter. It was old hat. The dog gets in the car with me, and I pull out of the driveway, and I'm driving down the road at about 40, and the dog's leaning way out the door. And since there's nobody on the road but me, I take my hands off the wheel and I say, "Sit down, Sandy." I look up and I see a tree.
Oh.
And then I remember nothing for 2 weeks when I came out of the coma, but it was awful. And I had neurological damage. I had the left side of my head so hard that the right side of my body got a beat behind the left side, and so I was not very coordinated. I had very poor short-term memory, and I thought I was ruined as an actor. But here I am to talk about it.
Well, you are. How did you confront it just at that moment, Eric, where you thought, my gosh, it's over? The very thing that you absolutely love may not be there anymore by virtue of that crash.
If you manifest your hope, you can survive off of it. And that's what I did. I just hoped it would pass, hoped it would pass. This has to pass. I have to work harder. I have to work harder. And I just did. And so after about 11 months and an experience with a great director, Bob Fosse, I became who I am now.
Yes, and I think really it goes to show that without a shadow of doubt, that you are not only a survivor, but also a thriver on so many levels. We were talking about some of the great movies that you've done. I know a firm fan favorite among those who love your work is The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone, but also with the great Rod Steiger in there. And we're talking about those wonderful legends that I guess you could only dream of working with. What was Rod like?
Rod was the coolest. One little quick story about Rod and I. We're by a pool doing the scene one day, and we have lots of waiting time, and we're sitting there, and there are extras everywhere, and blah blah blah, and they're setting up, and it's a scene with Sly and Rod and I and Sharon and blah blah blah, and the second AD comes out and makes an announcement. Mr. Stallone is about to arrive on the set. Please, all you background, don't make eye contact with him. And Rod goes, what? So Sly shows up and Rod proceeds to re-announce, don't make eye contact with Mrs. Stallone. He gets very uptight and he embarrassed Sly terribly. He was horrible. He was embarrassing. And Sly's like, hey, Rod, that's not funny. And and it was just those kinds of moments I will have for the rest of my life because you don't expect them and they happen and then they're over. But it was just a wonderful interaction of two great egos, great talents, great men, and I love them both. They're great cats. But Rod was very opinionated. Rod was very negative about most things. But Rod loved world peace and Rod loved good actors.
You move forward to, let's say, 2008, and you are cast as one of the great villains of the cinema, The Dark Knight, of course, mob boss Maroney, brilliant cast. So you've got Christian Bale, you've got the great Sir Michael Caine, and of course, you got to work with Heath Ledger.
What a guy. Really normal, really sweet, really unaffected and kind. And I had heard all these stories that, oh, you can't get near Heath, he's into character. Okay, that's cool. But that was not the case. He was, in fact, on the day that he's got like a 3-page monologue with all the bad guys, we're all sitting there all like together. We had a rehearsal that morning and we're all in our street clothes. And he's starting to do it and he's going through it. And then he stops and he looks right at all of us and he goes, how am I doing? He was that kind of guy. He was just cool. And what happened was an accident and we lost him.
I know.
But he was a wonderful guy to know. He was very totally unpretentious and kind. People who make that kind of impact on you, you always think you'll always have that impact. You'll always have had that person and that memory and that moment. And people die. And it's very demoralizing. And at my age, I don't know how old you are, our age, when you're over 50,
Yep.
you do get in touch with your mortality, and you realize that this is only a part-time job, and it's kind of frightening.
That's right. And we're all on that departure train at some point in time, aren't we? It's all just a matter of when your number rolls around. You think too about your career, not only so many incredible movies and TV shows, I mean, hundreds and hundreds as we've discussed, But I mean, you starred in one of Rihanna's music videos because how did you know this? But she turned out to be such an enormous fan of yours. You were meant to be killed off in that music video and she couldn't do it. I love this story.
Yeah, it was such a compliment. I was so floored by it. I was supposed to die in this video, and then I like show up on set, and she looks at me and has a little talk with somebody, and they explain to me that I'm too fine to die.
Yeah.
That I cannot die. I'm too fine to die. So she gave me another part in the video. But she's just a cool lady. She knows how she feels about things, and she says so.
Then you think from Rihanna to Mariah Carey, We Belong Together, her music video, and she was kind of your runaway bride. What was Mariah like?
She is a kind princess.
Mhm.
That's how she acts. That's how she is. That's her status in life, and she backs it up. She is kind, and she is a princess, and uh, and she can sing her ass off. What are you gonna do?
Of all the movies you've made, Eric, do you have a couple of absolute favorites that you look back on just with great fondness, maybe because of the terrific performance you turned in, or the people you were working with, or a great script? Are there any that are Eric Roberts' favorites?
Well, I made a lot of movies, so I have a lot of favorites. King of
Hmm.
the Gypsies, Star 80, Runaway Train, It's My Party, Love is a Gun, and Purgatory. Those are my six favorites. So almost 1% of my movies are my favorites.
Has there been anybody you've worked with that has really left an impact that you've paid it on when you're working with younger people that you can show tremendous kindness to?
Well, the strongest impact on me personally was not an actor, it was a director. And he taught me more, and he guided me more than anybody ever has, very specifically, and that was Bob Fosse. And he also taught me how to bend my technique a little bit.
Hmm.
And he was brilliant. And once you work with a real genius, which he was, you know two things: that you're not one, and that they are hard to find. You don't meet them. We throw that word around. Oh, he's a genius. No, I've met two in my life. He's one of them, and you don't meet them. They're hard to find, like tigers in the suburbs. They're hard to find.
Yeah, I guess. That was that Star 80 movie, is that right? With Mariel Hemingway?
Right, Mariel Hemingway. She didn't get her due for that movie because it's a very hard part because she's playing a martyred goddess,
Yeah.
and she had to get away with it, and she did. And but the dynamic, dramatic part of the movie was me, so I got the credit. But she was unbelievable in that movie. If you watch her, just watch her work in that movie, and you'll cry.
I'm with you, Eric. I think she's very underrated. And I guess maybe because of the kind of aura of the Hemingway surname, or maybe just her intense beauty, it takes away from what is that really incredible raw talent that she possesses.
You hit it. It's both. It's being a gorgeous Hemingway. It's a weight to carry, dude.
Now, last year, you told your story in a book. I mean, an incredible story. It became a bestseller. Runaway Train, my life story so far. What I loved about your book is you didn't hide away from anything. There was no whitewashing, no disinfecting of anything. Your story is absolutely extraordinary. But might I say, so was your honesty.
Oh, thank you so much. It brings me it makes me a little emotional because it was a very hard book to write. It took 2 years, and it's the only time, except in my relationship with my wife, that I've gone out of my way to not embellish, to not write what I want to be the truth, but write what the truth is. And that was so difficult. And to be honest is as hard as it is to stay in love. You have to maintain it. You have to practice it. You have to work it. And and uh, being an actor, being the character that I am personally, I, I don't uh, I don't expose myself. And so this book was really hard, and it took me 2 full years, and it's not a very big book. It took me
Yeah.
2 full years, and I would bring it to my wife as my editor. I would say, "Read this. What do you think?" And she'd send me back now and again with, "Don't embellish. Don't add this because that's how you felt, but it's not what happened." I'm like, "Oh, good catch," and I'd go fix it. And it was really difficult and really, really disarming because you find your mortality and you find your faults and you find your mistakes and you find your misgivings and you have to find your own form of forgiveness so you can carry on.
And not only that, but there were uncomfortable things too, Eric. Everybody has them in their lives, but when you're writing a book, you don't often reveal them. I guess with the blistering canner that you did, past demons, addiction, drugs that cause family rifts. It is awkward.
The awkwardness of it all either makes you find what you need to find to survive or get lost. Because
Yeah.
awkwardness, you can't stand on awkwardness. That's a great word. Thank you.
People have obviously heard lots of stories about you and your sister Julia, and you were very candid about that too, and essentially said, "Look, you made some mistakes and said some silly things." Did she respect what you said? Did she ever reach out and say, "I was kind of moved by what you wrote"?
I said it as it was. And my sister and I have talked about anything but the book. We have not discussed the book once.
Mhm.
And I credit that as that's what she wants. So I don't bring it up. And she hasn't brought it up either.
Well, you know what, Eric? Sometimes in life, there are things that just don't need to be said.
Sometimes in life, there's things that don't need to be said. It's so true.
Speaking of really beautiful things, you have a gorgeous love story. You've been referencing your wife, Eliza, throughout our chat. You've been together now for, gosh, what, coming on to 35 years? Is that right? Or beyond 35 years?
Half my life. Yeah.
And I know Eliza is right there. Eliza, we'd love to say hello.
Hi there.
How fabulous. And in your own right, a fabulous actor, National Lampoon's Animal House, and a casting director almost without peer. I mean, if it weren't for you, maybe George Clooney wouldn't have gotten ER. And then there's Halle Berry's incredible movie career. You've been instrumental in a lot of great things, haven't you?
Thank you. Well, I hope so. I wanted to be. You'd have to ask them, but yeah, it's really gratifying to see that spark from someone early along before anybody sees it, and then it's really frustrating to try to get everyone to see it, and then it's gratifying when they finally do.
I know. What do you do about that when you can see somebody has such a tremendous talent or the potential to have a tremendous talent, and yet that other person just is not getting it? They're not seeing it. How do you break down that brick wall?
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I mean, first of all, you have to realize it's going to take time. But so much of, and many things in our industry are true in other industries too. This might be a little bit unique to us, and that includes music and acting. We're always hustling. I mean, we're always selling. We're always pitching. We're always trying to convince. And most of our job is getting the next job or getting a job for someone else we really believe in, and it can drive you crazy. You have to kind of believe a little bit that most of the time it will happen. Just you can't really say how, but the factors will fall into place. Not all the time, though. There are definitely still people out there just languishing around who should be recognized for sure.
You two met on a plane, and it's quite the fabulous story. Who wants to tell it?
What do you think? We tell it a little differently. So
Well, my experience was this.
Yeah.
I get on a plane. I have to read a script on the plane because when I land, I have to give an answer if I'll make the movie. So I have to give an answer when I get off the plane. So I have to read it on the plane. So I get on the plane, open my script, read my script. Here comes a girl, and the script sits there. And I assume it's an actor of some sort. She has a script. Hi. We don't speak because we start to read our scripts. We say hi, but that's it. But we close our scripts at the same time. So we kind of have to talk. We're making eye contact. So, hi, what are you reading? What are you reading? Who wrote that? Who's your favorite screenwriter? She says. I said, one guy, David Rayfield. He wrote 3 Days of Condor, Out of Africa, The Way We Were, The Firm, blah, 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 blah. She goes, I know. He's my father.
Oh, wow.
So I said, wow, how cool is that? Can I have your phone number? And she says, I'm in a relationship. I said, I'm asked to sleep with you. I asked for your phone number. She laughed and gave it to me. So I have her phone number. So I go to work that night. I land in LA. I go to work, but I only work about 3 or 4 hours and I'm off. I'm done. So I called this girl I met on a plane. This is a cutie. So I call her up. And a man answers the phone with a very deep voice. Hello. I'm like, oh no. Can I speak to Eliza? Maris is calling. Eric, just a minute, please. He's gone for like 5 full minutes, but I can hear stuff, so I know they're there. But she finally comes to the phone. We have this relationship, blah, blah, 34 years later, here we are. Okay, that guy was Jeffrey Dean Franco from Walking Dead. He was
Not Frankel, that's your lawyer.
Oh, yeah. Jeffrey Dean Morgan from Walking Dead. He was her nanny. He goes to her and he says, telephone call. She goes, who is it? He goes, Eric. She says, I don't know an Eric. He says, sounds like Eric Roberts. She goes, oh, I met him on the plane. She takes the call. If he hadn't said it sounded like Eric Roberts, she wouldn't have taken the call. I would not have called back because of Jeffrey Dean Morgan knowing my voice. I have this. I'm serious. This is how this happened. It sounds like Eric Roberts. Oh, I met him on the plane. She took the call. It wouldn't have happened had he not recognized my voice. I love Jeffrey Dean like I love her all day, every day.
You know what? It's very clear the universe meant for you guys to be together. There is no shadow of doubt about it. Don't you agree, Eliza?
Yes, I do. And what a thing that's funny about the book, because you read the book, right? And you read
Yes.
it in book form. And I think Eric tells that story, or at least part of it in the book. And then when we did the audiobook, I took a turn telling the story. So anybody who wants to hear both sides of the story, you just have to read and then listen to the book.
Well,
Who proposed? Was it you, Eric, or was it you, Eliza? I know it's a very modern world these days.
It is, that's true.
oh, I proposed to her. She's old world feminine that the guy has to lead the way. She's that type, and she would never propose. And
You proposed.
yeah, sure, yeah. I asked her to marry me
Yeah.
And
which
where
was
did you get married?
in
What?
Woodstock.
by justice of the peace. Yeah.
But isn't that great though? Woodstock. I mean, it meant so much to us because of the music and the beauty and everything.
And we lived right across the river from Woodstock.
Yeah, it was
And
great.
then, did I read somewhere or hear somewhere that you married again? You renewed your vows?
Yeah.
We were again on the East Coast and we were doing a film for Candace Cain and Jason Frederick was in it. And we were getting married in this. It's called Wedding Bell, Belle, because my name is Belle in the movie. And the next thing you know, I guess Jason had whispered to Candace, I actually could be marrying them because I'm ordained. And suddenly they had a second dress for me. And Candace said, we're just going to do something. And we went up there and did this whole thing, not unscripted. And Jason was like, you guys just renewed your vows.
We
We're like,
wedding.
what?
Yeah.
We got remarried.
Yeah, we did.
So oh my gosh, it was so amazing. And I'll send you guys some photos of it because I think there are huge clamps in the back of my dress because nobody had time to do any alterations. But who cares? It worked. There was a lot of tears and it was really something.
She looks beautiful.
Thank you. So did you.
I love the fact, Eric, that you said you kind of fall in love with Eliza all over again. There'll be a period of time goes by and bingo, all of a sudden you just find your heart singing like one of the great opera divas for this gorgeous woman beside you right now, all over again.
Well, and not to get too self-righteous about it or pontifical sounding, but my wife's a genius. And she's an attractive genius. This has to be hard for you to hear. So, but so I fall in love with her, and then we go through life, and we have our day-to-day stuff. And you don't feel love all day every day until finally you see her do something that, oh yeah, that's that woman I fell in love with. Oh my God, oh I do love her. And you say to you, I love that woman. And it just, yeah, I had that reverberation probably a dozen times a day on a good day. And it's just
Relationships have climates, I mean, you go through cold spells, You go through hot spells, you go through warm spells, but you have to sort of trust that there are going to be climates. And I think that during the times that are warm, that's when you kind of have the potential to really rediscover each other. Or you see something very romantic and you can get that yearning for it. And then you realize you have it right there under your nose. When you think about the times that you treasured every minute you could be together and couldn't stand every minute that you had to be apart, you have that. I mean, you just have to recognize that it's there. It's very similar. Well, there's a lot of differences, but it's very similar to how it is with kids. You know, you'll see a parent being really grouchy with a 4-year-old, and you can often remind them gently to think back to the first time they held that child in their arms, and they couldn't imagine being grouchy with this little creature. And you sort of have to knit things together sometimes in order to keep them solid. And it doesn't take much work. It just takes the realization that it's possible.
What's the Eric like that you've gotten to know so well, Eliza? The Eric Roberts that maybe even his greatest fans would have no knowledge about. Is he clean? Does he cook wonderfully? What are some of his fabulous quirks?
This is a great one. Okay, because Keaton, my son, was complimenting me the other day on a picture I took of Eric. I'm a terrible photographer, by the way. I have some talents. That is not one of them. Terrible photographer, but this picture actually worked. It was Eric in the bathtub, covered in all kinds of silly foam by our 2- and 6-year-old granddaughters. Covered in silly foam, a bunch of sprinkle and dazzle flipped on there. Sparkles all over the place. They'd already done his full eye makeup and face makeup, and they just decorated him with everything possible, and then decided to turn him into a dessert, thinking the cats might like it. So then came the blueberries and, you know, and some pirates, what's it called? Pirate's booty, which is like the healthy version of Cheetos and
Popcorn.
stuff. And Eric couldn't have been happier. And the girls were very serious and then giggling and then very serious and then and you know, no one would think in a million years that this ridiculously playful, I don't think they even think he's an adult. When we've interviewed, sometimes when he interviews for some of the more salacious shows, you know, in the UK or whatever, some of the shows where they really want you to act up and hate each other, the housewife type of shows. I'm not going to name the actual shows, but you can surmise very easily. They want him to say, you know, I'm easily triggered. I get mad about everything. If anyone touches my food in the fridge, I'll punch them in the nose. You know, and instead, Eric will tell the truth, which is he'll be like, well, I love to read. And I go to bed. By the time it's 7:30, it's way past my bedtime. And, you know, I'll have a little snack and go back to bed. And I look forward to feeding all the animals and wildlife in the morning. That's the true guy.
Yeah.
No one knows that people are shocked. I mean, people are shocked. Sometimes they'll even we just finished an autograph convention. There were a lot of people there. It was fabulous. There were 2 people working the convention who by the 3rd day still couldn't reconcile the guy they were giggling around with the guys he plays. They kept waiting, you know, for some, you know, dark mood to, it just, yeah, no, this silly guy is the guy.
Eliza, you really were instrumental in kind of Eric's life turning around because, you know, the bad boy tag had followed him. He'd been brutally honest in his book. We don't need to go over it. But I mean, you basically helped him turn his life around into this absolute treasure that he is now. And I guess it's proof positive it can be done. I still remember that funny story Eric told about going in to meet with Woody Allen, completely stoned and being kicked out of Woody's office.
God.
Well, it was actually on a set. He had me come to his set,
Really?
and he looked at me, and he looked away, and he looked back at me, and then he got mad. He obviously saw, I think it's guys in touch, and he got mad, and he kind of said, "See ya."
So you're high, go, right? Something like that?
He didn't say that,
He didn't say it, okay.
but that was the innuendo.
Yeah.
That was the innuendo. You were referencing your son, and he's about to tour all over the place, including here in Australia and throughout America. Tell me about that.
He's just about to, I'm sorry,
No,
I get excited.
No, I know.
He's just about to be in Australia with Brett Young. And
Yes.
it's the best concert, man. They are so good. And I'm not a concert guy, but I love these concerts. They are so good. And when our kid, her kid, but and Has a dad who's a real cool guy, by the way. But
Yeah.
when our kid, as it were, is brilliant, it makes me cry every time. He's got these long solos that just make me weep. They're so Led Zeppelin unique, incredible, and he blows my mind every day.
See, Eric's wearing a shirt, a key and a ton.
Keaton.
Keaton.
Oh, yes.
You had to notice
Keaton.
when
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
lined with guitars. That's Keaton's merch.
Yeah.
Was he always musical, Eliza, right back from when he was a little boy?
He is a virtuoso. There's something wrong with his brain that has a really good benefit.
Yeah.
He was, and someone pointed out to me the other day that this is not unusual. He was very scientific and mathematical as a tiny little kid, very nature oriented. And then one day I was playing the piano. I'm classically trained on the piano. I stopped at a certain point, but I can play some stuff. I was playing like Scarlatti or, Rachmaninoff. And he said, he was 2. And he said, I like that song. And if I played 4 measures, I wouldn't even separate the treble and bass clef. 4 measures, he could immediately learn it 4 measures at a time and until he had the whole piece.
And he's 2.
And he didn't learn to read music until he was 21 years old. But he could play Chopin. There was something really anomalistic about him. And he is a world-class guitar player, and world-class guitar players have recognized him as such. And then he writes these incredible songs in his voice. I mean, he's got it all going on. It's really amazing. He's really something.
And Eric, you got a movie. I mean, about 900 movies are releasing in the next month, of course, because that's your thing. But Hippo, tell me about Hippo. This is one that's very dear to your heart.
I'm so proud of Hippo because it was a movie made without me, with my wifey, and these other 2 incredibly great young actors.
Yes.
And they all give tour de force performances. Her performance is, I hate when people say it's about me, so she's going to give me grief later, but it's an Academy Award performance. She's unbelievable. And I'm a snob, even about her work. I'm like, yeah, it was good, but unbelievable, unbelievable. Oh my God. And I saw this movie twice and freaked out and want everybody to know about it. But anyway, they made this movie and they showed it to me. And then the boss of the movie, the director said, would you do the voiceover for the movie, the narration? So I did. And I'm so proud of it because, narration's narration, but I did well. And my wife gives a perfect performance, blowing your mind. Wait till you see it.
I'll tell you a little. First of all, if you Google Hippo, if you don't find our movie, you will at least find some really cute hippopotami in there. And it's true, which we love. It's a kind of a Wes Anderson feel. It's not necessarily the kind of movie I would go see, but it's very, very funny in its way. Kimball Farley plays my son, and he played our son in a different movie. And then Lila something, I can't pronounce her last name, but she's Hungarian. She's very, very well known in Europe. She's amazing.
She's a little girl with this man's deep voice. It's amazing. She's so cool.
The whole cast, there's other people. Mark Rappaport's an incredible director. The movie was picked up by Danny McBride and Rough House Pictures. So that means a lot, that getting that nod. And there's some stuff, there's a lot of different reasons for seeing it. There are, interestingly, we use some footage, and so my kids as babies are in it, and there's some youthful, intimate footage of Eric and Eric and me in the movie, which had to be cut out for my daughter to see the movie. My son could handle it, but anyway, Eric's narration is really special. There's something really, it's something they're using now to teach people voice acting. There's just something incredibly intelligent and very seductive about it. The movie it's very ahead of its time, and it's kind of special, and it's created a lot of work for both of us. Not that he needed more, but it's funny at this time in life to suddenly be back to working full-time as an actress. I have 72 pages of dialogue to learn after we finished interviewing with you. I mean, so it just shows you it's just never too late. All this miraculous stuff can happen. It's amazing.
No, it is absolutely fabulous. But Eric, I note on your very vast filmography, Sinatra Eternity, which is a movie about the, I guess, the rather complicated relationship between Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner. What can you tell me about that just quickly?
It's a movie written and directed and starring Rico Simonini. Now, he started out just as a Sinatra fan, but then he learned how to be Sinatra. So he made a movie about it. And I play a studio exec for him. And it's a really fun little movie to watch if you're a Sinatra fan. And most people apparently are.
Also, we knew it as being called Frank and Ava. I love that title that you said, for Sinatra Eternity, because I guess they've retitled it.
Yes.
It's got a lot of gems. There are a lot of people. The cast is amazing. From my mom's in it, and she actually was a professional, so she kind of belonged there. But some people from The Sopranos, some amazing actors are in it, and there's one funny thing about it too. Rico Simonini, besides being an actor and very passionate about film, he's a doctor. He's a brilliant physician.
He's a big time doctor, though.
Very big doctor. And many of the people in the film who are very well known are his patients.
Wow.
And
It's a lot of famous faces.
because people always say, how did you get these people to do Harry Dean Stanton to do this film? And he's like, well, I mean, I've got his life in my hands. I'm his doctor.
I think Terry Moore is in it as well, playing herself.
Harry is in it. It's amazing. So we're just thrilled that it's getting a life everywhere. That's just wonderful.
We love Rico.
Lots of things happening. Can I just say, you are both amazing, adorable, fabulous. I've loved this chat.
We have too. Please, anytime, honestly. Okay.
If you like that interview, and we've got loads more coming, you know what you can do to stay constantly up to date. You hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too, because it's lovely to be liked or loved. And I look forward to seeing you for another celebrity drop any tick of the old clock. Un momento. I'll catch you then. And with bells on. Bye.